perfectly normal person, and I don't have any mental health issues at all. This is We Have Concerns. Hi, Jeff Cannata.
Hi, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, concerned citizens.
Anthony, I am fascinated by the concept of mind-body unity.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about one of the directions. I mean, we've talked about both, but one of the directions recently, it feels to me, we've talked about frequently, which is your body state controlling your mind. You know, we talked about that feeling when you're on the airplane and it's high pressure. And so you kind of feel emotional, or you're hungry, you know, and you get a little irritated because your body doesn't know how to tell you it's hungry necessarily. So it just makes you angry.
Yeah.
You know?
I think
all that stuff.
I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by the reverse. I think the first time I ever thought about your mind controlling your body is it was an old episode of Batman where he slowed down his heartbeat and his breathing rate, so he could survive, like when they were running out of air in a room. And I was just like, can you do that? Can you do that?
Just decide. You just decide to control the things that you think are uncontrollable in your own body. Mm-hmm. Your mind over matter, mind over your body. And there's a lot of research in that field of mind-body unity. And we got a new study that was just published in the journal Nature, brought to our attention by our friend Spielberg Neufer over there in the Discord.
What up?
Thanks, Spielberg. Doing that good work. Been there a long time. One of our stalwarts.
Old school.
This is a really interesting study that was conducted at Harvard University. You know Harvard. You remember your alma mater?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't like to say that I'm a Harvard alum, because what I really did was I audited a lot of classes. Yeah. And what I mean by auditing a lot of classes is I kept sneaking into Harvard University.
Well, you were that janitor, that night janitor. Mm-hmm. And you kept just going in. I dressed like a night
janitor. The thing is, I was turned down. I was told that I was not smart enough to be the night janitor at Harvard. Because if you're the night janitor at Harvard, you have to be able to secretly solve very impressive math problems.
Right.
And unfortunately, I couldn't do that. And I was
you couldn't.
No, I was like, I just want to be the janitor. And they're like, look at this janitor. And it was some kid from Boston who solved a blackboard full of garbage. And they were
my understanding is that you didn't even like them apples.
No, I'm not an apple guy. And they knew that. They could tell. So really what I did a lot was just auditing classes is what I called sitting in a lecture hall and looking around to see what kid left their backpack open, what wealthy child left their backpack open.
Yeah.
and
you said auditing. It was more like stealing. It was theft, really.
I was doing is I can't go onto the Harvard campus anymore because I stole a lot of things.
Yeah.
My alma mater.
One of them was an education in a way, you know.
In a way. And in a way, I like to think that I gave them an education.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Less of a Matt Damon, more of a Joe Pesci.
Two folks that are welcome on the Harvard University campus are psychologists Peter Ongle and Ellen Langer. Hopefully I pronounced those close. And they just published their new findings in the journal Nature, analyzing one aspect of mind-body unity, which purports to suggest that our perception of time can affect our rate of healing.
Okay.
This is an amazing, amazing study. I absolutely loved reading through it. Again, available online on in the journal Nature. And the first thing they do in this study is talk about some other studies that they did not conduct that kind of lay the groundwork for this mind-body unity idea, the idea of the direction that they're interested in, which is not the body controlling the mind, but the other way around, the mind controlling the body. And they point out some previous studies that I had not been aware of that I think are fascinating, that I want to throw out to you right before we even get into what they have published.
Okay.
Because they reference a couple of really awesome. I mean, we know about the placebo effect, right? Which is a version of this mind-body unity where if you think the medicine works, then it can actually work. It can actually have some positive effect.
Yeah.
We know that. That's very common.
Mm-hmm.
There are some studies that have shown, for example, there was a study involving hotel housekeepers where they took a group of housekeepers at a hotel and they told half of them that their job, just the walking around from room to room, cleaning the sheets, taking off cleaning the rooms, making the beds, all the stuff that they do normally.
Yeah.
That job in and of itself fit the definition of exercise.
Okay.
They're like, hey, congratulations. Guess what? The medical definition of exercise is your job. So they told half of them that and measured it against the other half that did not get that information.
Okay.
And it turned out that the half that thought they were exercising by going to work lost weight, had lower blood pressure, had a lot of the benefits that you would get from exercise just because they thought they were exercising.
Wild. I mean, we've talked about when we talked about the placebo effect, we've talked about the thing of like, you can tell somebody that you're giving them a placebo and it will still affect them. You can tell somebody this pill that I'm giving you is literally nothing. It does not do anything for your condition. Here you go. Take it. See how it makes you feel. And people will take it and literally feel better. I think about all the people that like constantly pop Emergency during cold season.
Yeah. I've been guilty of that.
It does nothing. But hey, if it makes you feel better, do it.
Yeah.
And they have found that people that pop things like that are less likely to get sick.
Yeah.
There's no wild reason for it.
Yeah. There's no physical reason for it. It's this idea that your brain convinces you that, I'm doing something, so there must an effect must result.
Yeah, I do like that my brain kind of feels the way I do, which is like, if I'm going to do this, I better get something out of it. Like my brain and I are very aligned down to a cellular level of like, if I'm going outside today and I'm going to run this errand, it better fucking work. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Am I going to the DMV? I better leave with everything taken care of or I'm going to be fucking pissed. My brain is the same way. My brain down to the cellular level. I love that it's just like, if we're taking a pill, it better work. Otherwise, why are we taking the pill?
You know what? I'm just going to make it work.
I'm going to make it work because if it doesn't work, what's the point?
Exactly.
What's the fucking point?
Another study they cited, which I'd never heard of before. This is a pretty old study.
How old is it?
Well, I think it's 1979 when it was conducted.
Well, that's not funny.
Took a bunch of elderly men. Elderly, they defined in 1979 as between the ages of 70 and 75.
Okay, I think we still would.
Okay,
I know you're almost
75
there.
Is young. It's not
I know you're like 3-4 years away
from 70.
Yeah.
Men between the ages of 70, 75, they told them they were going to do a study about reminiscing and asked them to,
the song, Praying in the dark, praying in the dark and reminiscing.
And they're like, what? This is 1979. I've never heard that. They asked them to self-assess their health level, and then they took them to a retreat at a remote monastery in New Hampshire.
Hell yeah.
That had been retrofitted with furniture, appliances, periodicals, and everything that you might find from 20 years earlier, from 1959. They told them they were divided into two groups, and one group was said, hey, hang out here, reminisce about the past, have a good time. The other group was like, hey, hang out here, but not only reminisce about the past, pretend it is actually 1959. Do not speak of anything that has happened in the last 20 years. Only talk about things that would be relevant to 20 years ago.
Dude, have you ever spoken to an old person? That's all they do.
It's like their favorite thing.
That's like literally, I've never heard an old person talk about anything.
Well, they complain. Sometimes they'll be like, "What's up with these computers?"
Oh, they will complain.
Yeah,
that's
so this
true.
is a group that was told, "Do not complain." In fact, pretend that nothing. You're in 1959. Suppose that there is nothing. You are in that moment. And
Jeff, I'm going to tell you something right now, which is I sort of, because of the years in which this study was run, I don't like the socio-political implications of telling these old people to pretend it's like pre-civil rights era.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, just pretend all that pesky stuff didn't happen. I don't like that.
Racist as you want.
Yeah,
just sit in a room.
I don't know. It's a little icky, but go on. What happened? What happened to the people that pretended that
both groups who went to the retreat self-reported feeling better, healthier. They were tested. They had better mental acuity.
Mm-hmm.
They were physically more able to do things from as compared to before the retreat. And the ones that actually pretended, that just ignored the last 20 years completely, had a dramatically higher result on their tests. And even better than that, because we always complain about self-reporting, even better than that, they recruited a bunch of impartial judges who judged photos of them before and after the retreat. And the majority of the impartial judges viewed the photo taken after the retreat as looking younger.
That's wild. That's actually wild to me. Are you telling me that the trick to health is to ignore the world and live in the past?
Pretend. An elaborate series of improv games where you pretend, you do space work, you just
live in the past. I don't like that the implication here is living in the past is better for you. I've got a problem with that, but okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what did they take away from that? Why do they think that worked?
Well, this is just the setup. This is just the setup for establishing a mind-body unity, a mind-body connection.
So they don't know why it worked.
No, nobody knows why it works. There's something about your mind convincing your body. Check this one out.
They were just pretending. Because they were pretending it was 20 years ago. They were pretending they were younger, and by pretending they were younger.
Yeah, their body went, "Oh, I have to actually be younger, I guess." I have to, I remember what it was like to be this age, and it was like my joints didn't hurt,
This is why Daniel Day-Lewis ignores his family and goes off into the woods.
Yes.
Because he turns into the character that he plays. You may say that method acting is for egotists and babies. Who simply can't just show up and do the job that they say they've trained their whole life for. You might say that, but it's important for Daniel Day-Lewis to leave and ignore his family for 6 months at a time and pretend they don't exist.
Because he's been pretending to be a baby for all this time, his joints are supple and soft and his skin is luminescent.
This is so, okay. This is wild.
I have one more. I have one more. One more
before the real one.
Get to the one that just got published. I have one more. This, I think, is applicable right now to you and me.
Okay.
Amazing. Okay. 16 healthy participants, so very small sample size. These were male and female, average age 24. Okay.
All right.
They were participating in a sleep study.
Jeff, when you say, were they participating in a sleep study, or were they like participating in a sleep study?
It's the first one.
Were they, you know?
I mean, I'd like the second one, but it's the
You
first
know
one.
what I mean?
Some nights they were given 8 hours of sleep.
Okay.
Some nights they were given 5 hours of sleep.
All right.
But they
Must
were
be nice.
told lies when they woke up. Sometimes they were told you got 8 hours of sleep when they got 5. And sometimes they were told you got 5 hours of sleep when they got 8. So
Okay.
they went to sleep, woke up, the clock was changed, you know, without them knowing that was the
They
purpose of
woke
the
up.
study.
They woke up. And the scientists were just standing next to their bed. And the scientists were like, you slept in a little bit, sleepyhead, but we didn't want to wake you up because you're so adorable when you sleep. So we let you sleep an extra 3 hours because you looked like you really needed it, bud. We made coffee. You want coffee? And they're like, oh, thanks, scientists. That'd be nice.
And then some days they woke them up. They're like, "Oh, you slept in! Whoa, no." So some days they were given 8 hours and told 5, and vice versa. And some days they, you know, actually were told the correct number. It turned out, not only did they self-report feeling more rested, even if they weren't actually more rested when they were convinced they were more rested. Like when they were convinced they had more sleep. When they were told they had 8 hours, they said they felt more rested, even if they didn't actually have 8 hours. But not only that, cognitive testing proved they actually were more alert, more able to perform higher on the tests.
So, okay.
Reaction times were quicker.
I'll say this. Sometimes I think I do sleep tracking on my little wristy boy. And here's what I'll tell you, Jeff. Sometimes when I have bad sleep and I know that I've had bad sleep, I don't want to look at the wristy boy, because when I look at the wristy boy and I get the confirmation that I had bad sleep, it just makes me feel even worse. And I think there's something to that, like just knowing, having the confirmation that I got bad sleep does make me perform worse throughout the day. And it ruins my mood to have the confirmation that I had the bad sleep.
Yeah.
So I feel that.
There was
Mind-body unity, baby.
Supposedly, people who've been told they've touched poison ivy will have skin irritation, even if they haven't actually touched poison ivy. If a doctor comes in and says, you touched poison ivy, sometimes they'll get a skin irritation. It's crazy.
What happens if the doctor walks in and says the floor is lava?
Then you have to leap onto the nearest furniture, no matter what.
Otherwise, they can invalidate your insurance claim. They'll do it. They've done it over less.
Yeah. All right. So this brings us, all of that is just preamble to the main event, which is these scientists set out to test whether we could actually heal faster if we think the time has passed. So what they did was they went, okay, we got to test a bunch of people, a bunch of Harvard students, or as we like to call them, you know,
marks.
The marks. Exactly. We're going to leave marks on the marks.
That's what I call them.
Because that's what happens is they're like, we gotta test healing. How do we test healing? Well, we're going to have to injure a lot of people.
Yeah. And I just call them marks because I'm stealing from them the whole time it's happening.
Oh yeah. You love that. So they had to find ways to injure people the same way over and over and over again. So they went with, as you might have guessed,
pushing them off a bridge. If you push them off the same bridge,
the same time of day.
Yeah. Same bridge. It's
the same moment of traffic. No, they went with cupping.
Oh, yeah.
Old friend cupping. Cupping is a purportedly therapeutic procedure. Yeah.
Purportedly.
Who knows? People enjoy it. I've never done it. Have you ever cupped?
No, but it's listen. Any health thing that's big here in LA I have a natural skepticism towards. Anything that people
Yeah.
go in and it's like, well, who does the cupping? I don't know. The same lady that sells me the crystal.
I feel like cupping has had its day. I don't hear about it as much as I once did.
I don't hear about it as much. It's definitely a little more. It's definitely, it started off as pretty woo woo, and then it got kind of mainstream, and now I feel like it's pretty woo woo again.
It's waning. We're off to cold plunges.
It's on the woo woo wane.
Yeah, the woo woo wane, which is my 5-year-old's way of saying the
choo choo train.
A train. Yeah. So the good news about cupping is it leaves a mark, right? It leaves a little bruise. And so this is a way that they could tell people, hey, we're doing something therapeutic. And what we're actually doing is we don't care about the cupping other than it gives you a bruise.
Right.
So they brought in a bunch of hapless Harvard students and had them bruise themselves on their arms in different spots in their arms. And then they told them to watch how the bruise changed over time, healed over time, or faded, they told them to mark down and took pictures, and they would do it.
Or if it winds up looking like a state map or something like that, or like the face of Jesus, like to really just keep that in mind and look for that just in case.
Right. Just see if there's any stigmata that shows up, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Because stigmata, once again, not covered by your insurance.
Not. So everybody went in for 28 minutes. This was a 28-minute long viewing period. They did it 7 times, but some over the course of various visits, right? It's not all the same day. And some of the times it was actually 28 minutes, but some of the times it was 14 minutes, and some of the times it was 56 minutes. So sometimes it was half the duration they expected, and sometimes it was double the duration they expected. And they tricked them by futzing with the cloud. They took away all their cell phones and any kind of devices, and made them go in there, go into this room where there was a clock that would beep every, I think it was like 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Oh, so cool. What a cool study. There's nothing I love more than minor pain and constant beeping.
But guess
what a cool thing.
There's a section in here of their compensation, because oftentimes in the journal Nature, they don't cover the compensation. But here's a section I'd like to read to you from the journal Nature. Participants were paid $10 for each component of the study they completed, plus $5 Amazon gift cards after completing the full study. Participants who completed the study also received entry into a raffle offering 5 prizes of $50 Amazon gift cards to be awarded once data collection was completed.
Man, it's true what they say. All the money's in academia.
Not only do you get $10 every time you come in, and then, it was multiple visits.
Mm-hmm.
But you also get a $5 Amazon gift card. Don't spend it all in one place. That would be Amazon, I guess. Yeah. After you complete the whole thing, and you have a chance to win the big bucks, dude. The chance to go all the way to the $50 Amazon gift card.
If what I'm hearing is correct, we could potentially, for just a few hours of horrible, annoying discomfort, make almost $100. That sounds pretty
lucky,
good.
If you win the raffle,
pretty good.
Yeah, you got to win the raffle.
They're like, don't forget.
I hope the raffle was also a psychology test.
The raffle was like, it's like, hey, I heard y'all are doing that bruising study. Yeah, can we piggyback our study on your study? It's about how annoyed people get when they lose raffles over and over. And we figure just as long as you're doing the loud beeps and the bruising, we think you're really priming them for our study. Yeah. So, okay, what are they trying to do by having these people get bruised for 58 or 56 or 28 minutes, Jeff?
Well, they brought them into the room. Mm-hmm. They tricked them into thinking that it was always 28 minutes every single time. They took pictures of the bruises. They asked them to self-report, and they also, study this is really fascinating to read. They also distracted them so that they wouldn't, suss out that the time is being fucked with, right? Because it's like, we're fucking with the time.
Mm-hmm.
We tell you it's 28 minutes. It's only been 14. People are going to be like, well, it's not been 28 minutes. But they made them. So between beeps, so sometimes the normal study would beep every 2 minutes.
Sure.
The long time study would beep every 8 minutes, but they were told it was 2 minutes. But in between, you know what they had them do to distract them?
What?
Play Tetris.
Ugh. Here's the thing, Jeff. Here's the thing. You have me play Tetris. 14, 28, 56. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to know. I'm not going to know.
Time falls away when you play Tetris.
Fucking love Tetris. I could sit for hours and play Tetris.
So brilliant, these scientists.
So good. Did you see that 13-year-old who beat Tetris?
Oh man, so cool that story.
Shout out to that kid Willis who's 13 and beat Tetris.
First kill screen in the history of Tetris
kill
made by
screen.
human. Yeah, so cool. So here they are in the room taking pictures of their bruises, self-reporting the bruises, thinking it's been a long time, thinking it's been a short time.
Playing Tetris.
Playing some Tetris.
We got to look up how many scientific studies involve Tetris in some way. We really do.
These are the tools that the scientists have at hand. They use the tools presented to them. And I applaud that.
I don't even think it's a matter of just using the tools that are at hand. I think Tetris is just is a perfect tool. I don't think there could be a better tool.
Agreed.
I think we should look up, because we've talked about so many studies that involve Tetris. I love Tetris. Yeah. Hey, science. Good work on the Tetris.
Good work on the Tetris. And 13-year-old kid, Willis, good work on the Tetris.
Alexei Pajitnov.
Good work on the Tetris.
Yeah. Hank Rogers. Good work on the Tetris.
Did you watch that Tetris
Taron
documentary?
Egerton, who played Hank Rogers. Good work on the Tetris. No, I didn't watch it. Did anybody watch it?
I didn't watch it. I heard it was bad.
Yeah.
I heard it was bad, so I did not watch it. But I am mildly curious.
Sure.
Anyway.
That's what Apple TV is full of. Things that you're mildly curious about, but not enough to watch. Yeah.
Well, there was like just a raft of the same kind of movie of like, hey, there was a guy who invented a thing and WeWork and fucking Uber, and it's just like everything. It was like they all came out within like a 2-month period.
Yeah.
And Tetris was one of them, and I didn't get around
to it. Nike Air movie.
Yeah, which actually was not bad.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty good. All right. So much like our previous study that I told you about, they employed the use of impartial third-party judges to take a look at the bruise pictures. Again, just a great job. Look at 400 pictures of bruising.
Yeah.
Describe the level of healing.
It's somebody's kink. I'm sure some of them were into it.
Yeah. So check this out. So they rated the healing on a 10-point scale.
Okay.
0 being not at all healed, 5 somewhat, 10 completely healed. The 14-minute condition, this is half the time, had a mean rating of 6.13. The 28-minute condition had a mean rating of 6.43. And the 56-minute condition had a mean rating of 7.3.
What does that mean? A mean rating of what?
Okay. Of how healed it was. The same amount of time passed in reality.
Mm-hmm.
The same amount of time had passed. But they said...
but the people who believed they were sitting there for an hour... they healed more.
They healed more. They felt like they healed more, and impartial judges deemed their wound to have been healed more. So listen to this. Only 5 out of 32 participants had a mean rating of 8 or above in the 14-minute condition. So if they felt like they'd only been there for 14 minutes, only 5 out of them rated 8 out of 10 on a healing scale. 8 out of the 33 participants in the 28-minute condition, the actual amount of time they were there, were above 8, and 11 out of the 32 participants in the 56-minute condition. In other words, over a third of the participants had almost completely healed in the 56-minute condition, which is more than double the percentage of the participants in the 14-minute condition. So they were all there for only 28 minutes. But if you thought that you had been there longer, you actually healed more.
Whoa. Now, is there a reason why their chart of all this looks like somebody doing pottery or a bunch of slugs?
Because I
don't know. There's probably a name for this kind of chart. But here's what I'm going to tell you. It looks like a bunch of slugs, and I'm not sure what I'm reading.
It's trying to show you
I know what it's trying to show me.
Yeah,
I know what it's trying to show me.
It's basically three
slugs.
3 bell curves is what that is.
Yeah.
Or actually 4 because it's the top and bottom, but or 6. I mean, whatever.
7. Let's go for 9. 9 bell curves. It's 38 bell curves. Each one, it's a beautiful pottery vase.
The point is, again, small study. You know, I just think this is fascinating that your at some level, your mind thinks that you should have healed more because you think you have been there longer.
Right.
And so you do.
I wonder if it's interesting. I wonder if your body has like, I mean, there are all these systems that are working together when you're healing, when a wound is being fixed. And I wonder if there's like a speed that your body just knows that it should be healing at or feels like it should be working at. I'd be interested to know if like the people who healed more wound up having like, were they hungrier? Were they more tired? Like was their body actually worn out? Like, well, it had to work faster. So it was legitimately working more quickly, all of those systems.
I think that's a fascinating question. It doesn't go into any of that. Here's what I'm thinking, Anthony. You know, like you had a recent injury. You had a meeting with
I fought a truck and I won.
Yeah. What I should have, if we had done this story before that, what I should have done, is I could have gotten me and all your friends, and we could have walked into your room into the hospital room after that accident with long white beards.
Yeah.
We could have all had long white beards, and we could have had like, I don't know, like futuristic sunglasses on, you know, like those sunglasses where it's all just one lens and it wraps around your head.
Yes.
You know, and we could have been wearing tinfoil shirts, you know, and we could have been like, it's the year 2041, Anthony. You've been out for so long, but you're healed.
Whoa. Yeah.
It's amazing. And you could have looked down and everything would have been healed.
It would have just happened. It would have just happened instantly.
Yes. Because you would have been like, I've been out for 20 years. That's all the data suggests. And we could have replaced all the pictures in your hospital room with like, you know,
same pictures, but everybody's wearing those sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's changed, but everybody's wearing those sunglasses. I do think this is interesting. I wonder, like, how is there a way to? Like, I wonder if there's a way to trick yourself into manipulating your feeling on the passage of time, or if it's like tickling yourself. There's no way you could do it to you.
I think there's a lot of that with regard to this mind body. This is the ultimate problem with it, is that there's no way to know where you've reached the threshold of belief.
Yeah. You have to, have to really believe it. Like all of these, like the thing about all these studies is all these studies are like, you have to kind of really believe that there's something going on. But at the same time, we're like, you can hand somebody a placebo and tell them it's a placebo, and it still works. It's not as effective, but it still works. Could you fuck with your own perception of time? Could you set the clock in your house to run at half time or something like that?
Yeah.
Like genuinely. And even though you know that that's not really what's happening. Because
Right.
you're fucking with your perception of actual time, would it still help you to some extent?
We don't have any way of understanding. That's the really fascinating part of this mind-body unity, is that we don't have any way of understanding how to trigger it in ourselves.
Mhm.
You know, I think about this all the time. Anytime, you know, my kids get sick, my wife is like, oh, we're all going to get sick. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
No,
I've decided I'm not. And I feel I feel the tickle in the back of my throat. And I'm like, I don't feel that tickle. I am not sick.
Mm-mm.
And then I inevitably get sick, but I try to do it.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think I do think there's something to that. I mean, look, I have, you know, with my chronic condition, one of the things that we know is if I'm the more stressed I am, the more negatively I feel, the more likely I am to have inflammation and a flare up.
Yeah,
they're connected, and simply keeping yourself calmer does affect your body in positive ways. Like there are ways to, and I don't like to, the thing is the trick with this and the danger with this, and the thing that I don't like is I don't like to get to the point where we're believing a little too much in it, where we're believing in it more than we actually should.
It gets dangerously close to magical thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
It gets dangerously close to The Secret and all this like kind of mumbo jumbo, lie to yourself stuff. But I don't know where that line lives, right? Because clearly there is some element of this at play. Study after study, we talked about a half a dozen of them that seem to point to this notion of mind over matter, right? Mind over your body.
Yeah.
But where does that line live? I agree with you. I don't like to get to the point where it's just like, well, it's all what you manifest, because it's clearly not.
Because it's not all what you manifest. It's not.
Right.
You can't manifest not getting hit by a car. You can't manifest if you have a broken bone, you can't walk it off. There are things that you cannot fix through the power of the mind. And while I do believe that mental state can affect a lot in terms of health, I do think an outlook and things like that can really change. It can change your life. It can only go so far. It can only go so far. And until we know that line and exactly where that line is, I worry about depending on things like this.
Yeah. I totally agree. But I also feel like the lesson to take from it is sort of kind of lean into, you know, it sounds so trite and lame to say, but think positive.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen, let the lady who does the cupping sell you a crystal. Maybe the crystal works. I don't know.
Our science podcast recommending the crystal lady.
Listen,
you know,
what I'm saying is go get a crystal, sage your house. You know?
Yeah.
These are the things that are proven by science according to these studies and what we're reading into them. And
our takeaway is, the more bullshit, the better.
Buy our health powders. That's right.
Oh, yeah. By the way, that brings us to our new fucked up clock that we're selling in the We Have Concerns store.
That's what we're calling it. We're calling it a fucked up clock.
Buy the fucked up clock.
Please, we have to sell a lot of these clocks. We're getting sued by the Salvador Dali estate. They said that we can't call it
fucked up clocks.
Yeah, they said you can't call that a fucked up clock.
He's the king of fucked up clocks over here. Can I tell you my favorite? Maybe my second favorite line from the study.
Sure.
My favorite line being the reveal of how much everybody was compensated, but a close runner-up to that line in the study.
Yeah, give me your favorite thing that's actually that's actually about the study. That's actually related to the study.
The first line under the results heading. Right. You know, a lot of these scientific studies will be methods and conclusion and results. Results is a major subject heading. The first line after results of this study in the journal Nature says, psychology study participants, college students in particular, are notorious for trying to guess the true hypothesis of the studies they participate in.
That's right. We've often said that we would do that too. If you brought me in for a study, I'd be like, what are you doing?
100%.
What are you telling me you're doing? And then what are you actually doing?
I got this figured out.
I'm going to eat the marshmallow. Not because I don't know what this study is, but because I love marshmallow.
That's right. Every study Anthony conducts is secretly just a way to have him steal your stuff.
That's right.
You thought it was a study about marshmallows. It's a study about me lifting $50 from your wallet. I got to pay for those Amazon gift cards somehow.
To buy marshmallows.
Okay, so the line continues. It says, so at the end of our third lab session, we asked participants to guess what they thought the study was ultimately about.
Clever.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, they're pretty happy to report no one guessed it.
What were some of the guesses?
They said about half of the participants thought we were interested in how mood, stress, or attention related to healing, and about half thought we were interested in factors that influence subjective perceptions of healing. I mean, while it would have been, it says, they say,
they're not, they're pretty close.
They're close. Yeah. It says, while it would have been interesting to observe the predicted effect, even if participants correctly guessed our hypothesis, their responses indicated they did not.
So I do wonder, I mean, this is the problem with studies like this. I do wonder, the ones that knew that it was something to do with perception and healing, did it affect the healing?
Right. Yeah,
that's what I want to know. I want to know the ones who kind of understood what it was about. I want to know how their actual healing changed.
I think it's cool that none of them guessed that the time was being fucked with, though. I think it was cool that none of them even suggested, hey, maybe I've been in here and that. Because you know why? Because Tetris is an awesome game. That's why.
That's why. Because of the power of Tetris.
Yeah.
You could tell me I've spent 15 minutes or 15 days playing Tetris, and I'll tell you, I look up from Tetris and everybody's wearing those glasses and they got the long beards and the tinfoil. And I look up and I'm just like, what happened? And they're like, dude, you've been playing Tetris for 20 years.
You're like, that tracks.
That actually, I'm cool. Do you mind if I go for another 5? I got nothing else going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do they do with this information? What do they want to study next? How do they put this forward? How do we use it to our advantage? It's so nebulous in ways, you know? Like we know the effect, but then how do we replicate it and how do we put it to use? Is it something like you're talking about? Do we make the clocks in hospitals move slower? Does that help?
Yeah.
Would that help? That would be so weird.
It said, they say, the psychosocial variables we measured affected healing in a manner consistent with the previous research. For example, the less stressed participants were, the faster they tended to heal, and older participants were more slow to heal. But it says, which suggests that healing time expectations may affect actual physical healing times more broadly.
But what if you told those old people that racism was still cool?
I think they would probably heal right up.
Okay.
It said this is the topic that they plan to pursue in future research. So they really want to dig into to that.
Okay.
Psychosocial variables.
This is the first step.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting field, and I want to know, I mean, I now I want to like deep dive into studies about mind-body unity. Now I really want to know where we sit with this, because it does feel like there is a continuum from new agey, woo-woo, mumbo-jumbo, faith healer, someone's trying to steal your money,
right,
to the actual power of mind and body working together. And I want to know all the stuff that we've done about that so far. I want to know where we sit.
Their conclusion is this. They said the language of mind-body unity does not undermine the validity of biomedical models that emphasize external factors and lower level processes. It simply insists on the importance of psychological factors in all aspects of health and well-being.
Yeah,
Perceptions,
I think that's fair.
expectations, belief, and so on are reflected throughout the mind-body and are necessary to shape the biological and psychological processes. So they're just saying like,
yeah, that's
this
what
should
I'm
be
saying.
a factor.
That's
It should be
also what
part.
we're saying, but
Yeah.
we don't have to justify what we're saying to the people that gave us the grant money, so we can say it like people.
Right. I love this. I am fascinated by this phenomenon in myself, and seeing it tested in these ways. I love just figuring out the methodology for how do you test a wound heal? Well, we got to wound people, and then we got to trick them.
We got to push them off that bridge. Okay, so I know you fairly well at this point. I think you're somebody who treats people positively, tries to keep a positive outlook about the world, but internally has a very negative outlook sometimes about your actions and what you're doing.
Yes.
Do you believe that? Do you think that you could take on a more positive attitude about yourself and your physicality and things in your life would change if you could keep a positive attitude persistently?
I do. In fact, my wife is a worrier.
Mm-hmm.
She is a worrier. She is the child of a firefighter and a police officer, people who just instilled in her the worst possible thing that could happen in any given situation. You know,
yeah.
They saw it every day in their life, and they told her, don't do that because I saw a guy get split in half when he did that, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not to lay the blame at their feet or anything like that.
No, but if I would take advantage of that if I was a parent. I'd make shit up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, but she imagines the worst possible outcome and kind of lives in that reality. And that is something I do not do.
Right.
I try to, in fact, put off those awful feelings as long as possible to the last possible moment. Oftentimes past the last possible moment. I oftentimes live in a fantasy world of it's not as bad as it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Which is also not super healthy.
Right.
But
and that's also like, I don't know if that counts as positivity. You know, there is a lack of negativity in it, but I don't know if there's positivity in that. It's sort of avoidant, right? Like there's
yes,
you know,
that's very good point.
You're not putting a positive spin on it. You're just ignoring the negative.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also think that there's some of that comes from I hate to use the word belief, but belief in this, you know, in the sense of like, I don't want to live through the thing unless the thing has actually happened. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, let's maybe try to
make the best of thing.
Yes. And maybe that can actually have a positive effect. Maybe there is a part. Now, that's not denial of reality. That's not, you know, belief in magical thinking.
No matter what my wife and my therapist say.
What is your position in regard to this
Baby,
stuff?
I'm the king of positivity. You know me.
Yeah, you're Mr. Positive.
I'm Mr. Positive is what they call me.
People call you that all the time. Yeah.
I have. Okay, so this is actually very fascinating to me because if you were to look off camera here, about 5 feet away, I have a stack of various workbooks, my dumb workbooks that I hate. They're stupid baby workbooks. And my stupid baby workbooks are for things like chronic pain. They're for things like cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that, and dialectical behavioral therapy. It's all my dumb workbooks that are way below me because they treat my mind like it's a baby mind, and they're stupid and they're bad and they work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
right.
I have realized that I have to be realistic about about my condition and not just be realistic about my condition, but find the way to be zen and positive about my condition. Because when I do that, I do feel better. I have fewer flare-ups. I get more done during the day. And it's dumb. They're dumb baby workbooks. They're stupid as hell. List 5 things that would make you feel better right now. What do you like during the day? Dumb baby workbooks. Doing things like a gratitude journal at the end of the day. All of these things where it's like, you have to remember that today wasn't entirely bad. You cannot wake up every day and think that the day was entirely bad and full of pain. And doing these things they fucking help. They help a lot.
Yeah.
They help a lot. And it sucks and it's dumb because it means I have a dumb baby brain that these dumb baby workbooks work on. But it's true. This shit works.
I think we all do. I think we all have dumb baby brains.
Yeah.
Right? The dumb baby brain that says, hey, your job is now exercise. And our dumb baby brain goes, hey, that's great.
Good for me.
Okay, cool.
I did an exercise.
Wow.
Yeah. And listen, if I have a dumb baby brain, then most of us have a dumb baby brain because I went to Harvard.
Sure you did.
Multiple
repeatedly,
times.
Over and over. Like
mostly around lunchtime looking for paper sacks.
Even when they didn't want you to.
That's right. I'm not allowed to. But you know what I say? I use positive thinking. I say, I'm going to go back to Harvard.
That's right.
And then I do. And then they throw me right back out. And I say, I'll be back. You'll miss me, Harvard. No, I think this stuff is important. And that is why I'm so fascinated in finding this line. I want to know, man. Right. I want to know because this stuff has been working.
Findable?
It's been working for me. I don't know.
I don't know if it's definable. I don't know if we can ever actually know. I think there's some ineffable mystery about it.
I don't know if there's an exact line, but there is always a way to quantify things. And we can, if there's not an exact line, there could be things that are quantified in, hey, if you're from this sort of culture, you are more likely to believe this, or it's more likely to work for you. Maybe it works better for people who are heavily spiritual or religious. Maybe it works better for people who understand more about human biology. Yeah. Paradoxically, I don't know. Maybe it works better for people. I don't know. It's like maybe you have to have a certain level of health, and the healthier you are, the more it works, or vice versa. We don't know. It's every human body is different, so there are variables. But I think there's a way to quantify this stuff, and I think it's cool that we're doing more study into it. That's all. I agree.
Every one of these. Like the fact that there was all these different studies that were described in this one study, I loved reading. It's such an part of what I love is the test and what it tells us about how our brains work. But part of what I love is the challenge for scientists to try to come up with tests that are closed walled enough to make sense, right? How do you eliminate variables in something that seems to have infinite variables, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild,
I love that. Yeah.
It's wild. It's cool. Let us know if you've had any experience with this kind of stuff or how you feel about it. This I think is a really interesting topic. A great place to discuss it, Jeff, might be our Discord.
Yeah, but how do I get access to the Discord, Anthony?
Oh, buddy. Let me tell you something. It's as easy as going to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns and supporting this show for $1 or more a month. That's it. Just $1.
That seems so simple. I would love to do that. But what if I have more than $1 that I can devote to helping support the show and making sure it continues?
Ooh, buddy. Then you get even more. You get bonus episodes. You get bonus audio. You get Q&As. You get video sessions. You get all kinds of amazing stuff. And you get to know that you're helping us keep the show going and make the show possible. So head to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. I heard that if you don't, you'll get very sick. And now that's implanted in your brain. And if you give us money, you'll feel better.
Not sure. I'm not sure that's legal.
I learned a lot this week, and I'm using it.